What is up, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode 86, recapping week 10. Going to try our best not to talk about the Vikings for the entire episode, even though it's going to be incredibly challenging. I'm Sweekar, got Shishot, Shovit. Happy week 11 Eve.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's almost over. We're over the halfway hump.
Just get me all depressed because, like, what are we going to do when football ends?
It's going to be sad, but this week was probably one of the best weeks of football all for the whole year. Like what transpired, not even just the Vikings, it's just amazing what, all the games that happened.
Yeah. Weeks can be amazing when you win your fantasy football matchup. So I can tell you that much. If the Steelers had won, but you had lost your fantasy matchup, you probably would be like, yeah, this was, it's a good week, but could have been better. But, when you get the trifecta, everything hits, then that's probably the best thing that can happen. But we will talk all about it, guys. Let's kick things off with water cooler talk. Couple of things to highlight. Quarterback news. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson has cleared practice, and he's officially resumed practice duties as of yesterday, November 14th. He is still slated to start December 4th when the Browns play the Texans. 3 weeks of practice before he is officially back on the field. Panthers are running with Baker Mayfield right now. PJ Walker has a high ankle sprain, so the guy that was benched has now officially been thrusted back into the starting role. I feel like that happens way too often in the NFL. Browns head coach Lovie Smith has not decided to bench Davis Mills yet. I honestly don't really see why you would do that. The Texans suck. I think it's hard to put the blame on Davis Mills of all people for that organization. So it's interesting that they've even mulled over that, but he did say he is still sticking with Davis Mills, as is Saints head coach Dennis Allen. I know you guys talked about it, like Andy Dalton ain't it. When's Jameis going to be back on the field? Well, not so fast, says Dennis Allen. He is not ready to bench the Red Rifle just yet. And a lot of times, a lot of this stuff, when you're losing and you have the worst player on the field in the eyes of the many, it's just a very easy way to tank. Like, no, he hasn't earned a reason to get benched yet, but he is worse. So we'd rather put him on the field. And, if they win, they win. But if they lose, that's probably better for them. So a lot of quarterback news that's transpiring here in week 10. I know we talk about for fantasy implications, you most likely already have a pretty stable quarterback if you're a playoff contending team. If you don't, obviously there's still waiver wires and you could make a trade before the trade deadline. I know our fantasy league's trade deadline, I don't think has passed yet. So if you don't have one of the home run hitting quarterbacks, definitely want to make sure you do before playoffs. And then the last thing, really weird, Cardinals released Eno Benjamin. Super strange. I don't really know why. And the Texans who had the number one waiver claim, scooped him right up. So I don't know if that's just having a backup for Dameon Pierce. I don't know if that's Dameon Pierce has some sort of a minor injury that we're not aware of, but it was interesting to me that the Cardinals let him go after he played pretty well in the absence of James Conner. But, again, that is the Arizona Cardinals this year. That's it for water cooler talk, guys. Let's jump into the rundown. Kicking us off on Sunday in Germany, the Seahawks and Buccaneers played. Seahawks were 3-point underdogs, and they lose this game 21-16. Bucks covered the 3-point spread under 44.5 cashes. Seattle drops to 6-4 now, and all of a sudden Tampa Bay winning their division, officially back at 500 at 5-5. Tom Brady 2-0 since his divorce. Don't let them tell you that the females aren't the problem. Just kidding. I'll edit that part out. Tampa Tom is now 2-0 since his divorce. So that is incredibly encouraging signs, despite the fact that they're not really clicking on all cylinders. We talked about the Seahawks defense being vastly improved, and they did a really, really good job, at least for the most part, keeping this game close. Tom Brady did end up with 258 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns through an interception. Leonard Fournette didn't start the game because of some weird visa passport issues, but did end up still playing. And then unfortunately got hurt. Now, Tampa Bay does head into a bye week. So, Rachaad White getting 22 carries for 105 yards is encouraging, but Leonard Fournette is going to get a whole week to rest with the bye week. So I don't know if it's Rachaad White's backfield just quite yet. Chris Godwin finally breaks his touchdown scoreless streak, getting into the end zone, 6 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Julio caught the other touchdown from Tom Brady. On the other side, Geno Smith, solid day for fantasy owners, 275 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, carried the ball 4 times for 22 yards. But the one problem the Seattle offense had is they could not run the football against this Tampa Bay front. Kenneth Walker had 10 carries for 17 yards, probably his worst performance in the season thus far. Did make up for it, at least salvaging his fantasy days, caught 6 passes for 55 yards. DK Metcalf, 6 for 71. Lockett had 3 for 42 and the touchdown. And Marquise Goodwin, 2 for 38 and caught the other touchdown from Geno. But I think the biggest difference in this game, guys, third down efficiency. Seattle 1 for 9 on third down, can sustain a single drive. And Tampa Bay, 10 for 15. They were converting 2 out of every 3 third downs. So obviously that's going to be the difference. That's going to keep your offense on the field, give you more opportunities to score. And that ended up being the difference. And again, at 5-5, winners of 2 straight since the divorce, all of a sudden Tom Brady is making a resurgence.
The Vikings went to go check out how things were going over there in Buffalo. We were actually supposed to go to this game, and a lot of things happened along the way, and we weren't able to go. But the Bills are supposed to be favored by 7. That line kept fluctuating. Is Josh Allen in? Is Josh Allen out? Is Josh Allen in? And Josh Allen out? But he's just a really, really big, scaredy cat. And at the end of the day, he decided to play. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him from a medical standpoint. He made all the throws he typically makes. There was no limitations in the amount of throws. There was no limitations in the running game for him. He just basically, that was just a big fugazi. The overhit at 43.5, and the Vikings ended up taking this one 33-30. Vikings are now 8-1. Buffalo is now at a sad 6-3. What is going on in Buffalo land? Can you guys tell me?
No, I mean, I think the team only goes as far as Josh Allen. So Josh Allen makes a couple of mistakes that ends up being the difference in this game. And obviously, you know, as much as I love the Vikings, and this victory is probably one of the biggest they've had in the regular season, if Josh Allen doesn't fumble at the 1-yard line, this game is completely different. But again, that's how games work, right? There's so many variables that go into football for 60 whole minutes. But if I'm Buffalo, I'm not super concerned. I think the only concerning thing maybe that their defensive line is giving up a little bit more running than they would like. Dalvin Cook with that huge run, I would say, is something that I wasn't expecting. But other than that, I'm not entirely too concerned with Buffalo. There's still plenty of the season left for them to, you know, kind of get things going again.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it both ways, right? I, for one, am actually concerned with Buffalo because the 3 losses they have, they didn't really do a good job of finishing things off. That's where they lack the most. They seem to be sustaining multiple drives throughout the game. And then when it matters the most, Josh Allen kind of shits the bed. It's kind of odd to see as somebody that is a unanimous best player in fantasy football. Reality translation has not been as accurate. He has not been clutch in many scenarios. So let me talk to you about what happened in this game real quickly. The difference in this game is what I'm going to talk to you about. The yards were identical, passing, rushing. Vikings led in passing, Bills led in rushing yards, although it was very close. Yards per play was also very close. 2 picks thrown by both quarterbacks, 2 fumbles for the Bills, 0 for the Vikings. 4 turnovers versus 2 was the biggest difference. Third down efficiency, 53% for the Bills, 41% for the Vikings. Fairly close in the grand scheme of third down from efficiency. However, when it mattered, the Vikings converted a 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 12, and a 3rd and 10. And they also converted a 4th and 6 and a 4th and 18. Those were the biggest reasons they kind of came away with this win. They were less efficient on third down. However, they made the big plays when it mattered. I know you guys, we all watched this game together. We saw that Gabe Davis catch on the sideline. Turns out it wasn't even a catch. The NFL actually came out and apologized for making that blunder. That wasn't even a catch. Everything after that catch should have never happened. The game was
the fact that they didn't even review it on the field was the most baffling thing, right? Inside 2 minutes, you can't challenge it anyways. It's a questionable. It's already like a you know, not completely sure type play at such a, you know, kind of important time for them to just not stop it and review it was kind of strange.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that should have never happened. And then there was a 12 men on overtime when Justin Jefferson caught that pass at the 2-yard line, and the Vikings had the ball in overtime on first down. There was 12 people on the Bills' side, and they stuffed them at the 1-yard line. I mean, that's not okay. Come on, refs, like, get it together. You cannot have those big blunders on huge plays like this, on huge games like this. So, you know, everything was going against the Vikings. Greg Joseph even missed an extra point, which would have made things really different. Everything was going against him, but somehow, some way, in a miracle fashion, the Vikings are doing something they've never done before, and that's looking like a winning team. Justin Jefferson's catch is something we need to dive into. For me, like, I lost my freaking mind. Okay. I did not know he was capable of that because he hasn't shown me he's capable of those things. We've seen a lot of lobs. We've seen a lot of oddly timing jumping, and I've seen some drops, quite frankly, but this just changed everything. That is, in a lot of people's eyes, the greatest catch of all time, at least the greatest regular season contested catch of all time. He got 10 passes for 193 yards and a touchdown. Well on his way. We talk about the Tyreek Hill situation with, breaking the record. He's right behind him now, and he's definitely the focal point of this offense. And if there's games where we're throwing for nearly 400 yards, it could very well happen. Dalvin Cook, 14 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. He's really, really good at salvaging plays. I think a lot of fantasy owners are very, very, if I could trade him for somebody like CMC and him and like a Hawkinson for CMC, I'm doing it. I'm not sold yet. I'm not sold. He did a really good job. Like statistically, you can see good things happen. But from a fantasy guy perspective, like I'm watching these games and I'm seeing big runs happen late in the games. I'm not banking on that. I can't bank on that with 14 rushes. So Dalvin Cook, as well as he's doing on paper, just be careful. Be careful because we're not seeing the volume we're typically used to seeing. Hawkinson, another fantasy start there, seven catches for 45 yards on 10 targets. Singletary, he's going to be a flex play every week. When you're attached to Josh Allen, you're going to have to start that running back just from the fear factor. 13 rushes for 47 yards, not that big deal, but he got the 2 red zone touches. With Zach Moss out, there's really not a goal line back even available on the team anymore, so he's going to be getting all of those. Diggs, close your eyes and you start him, right? 16 targets, caught 12 of them for 128 yards. Gabe Davis got in the end zone with 1 touchdown, 93 yards, 6 catches on 9 targets. Again, that stat should not look as good as it did because that 30-something yard catch should have never happened. Josh Allen, going to start him. Not much to talk about there, except that was one of his worst performances from a critical game on the line situation. He fumbled at the goal line. You don't do that. Maybe there's a handoff situation, whatever, but you got to be better than that. 2 picks were thrown, both to Patrick Peterson, and he only had 1 touchdown on the day. He ran for 84 yards. So he's fine. He's absolutely fine from a health standpoint if you're worried about that. And then Vikings D, didn't really have a good day, but this bend don't break thing is very much alive. That's what they're banking on. And I know I keep hounding on that. Doesn't work, and it doesn't work. They're 8-1, but just keep in mind, good teams either have a Patrick Mahomes or they have Aaron Rodgers. If you're going to have a bad defense, we can't sustain this with Kirk Cousins because he's not a 5-touchdown kind of guy. He's very much a methodical, play on the game script, do what the coaches tell you kind of a person. So Vikings defense, I'm still a little nervous, but amazing job nonetheless when it mattered. Bend, don't break.
Number 1 team in the league, baby.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun game to watch. Next up, Lions at Bears. Chicago was favored by 3 points. Over-under was 40.5. The game ended at 31-30. Lions actually coming out on top and winning this game, which was kind of surprising given that the Bears and Justin Fields was basically dominating all the Lions throughout the whole game. It wasn't until the 4th quarter that the Lions got a defensive touchdown and an interception off of Fields and another touchdown that 21 points in the 4th quarter that allowed them to win the game. But really, it was just being able to finally stop Justin Fields because he was running everywhere. 147 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 167 yards passing, and also 2 touchdowns, both of them to tight end Cole Kmet, who ended the game with 2 touchdowns. So everything was working really well, but it all comes down to teams that have that extra mindset to push it at the end to be able to compete and win. That the Lions just showed that they do have, and the Bears, they're a young team. I think that they're scoring a lot of points, but their defense is allowing a lot of points as well. So they're all in on this offensive mind and all in on Justin Fields, and you kind of see that with the way that they're playing and the points that they put up. But defenses can score on them, and they did just that. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a solid day, 119 receiving yards. The running backs, the Lions, they run the ball often. Swift, not great, not a great day for him. Jamal Williams does get a touchdown, I think on 67 yards. On 59 yards, gets a touchdown. So, rushing attack for the Lions is not looking good. But if you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you're still rolling with him, obviously, like, he's going to be a must start. And all in all, Lions, with the grit, they come out and win this game 31-30.
That takes us to Tennessee, where the Broncos were in town. Tennessee at home, favored by 2.5 points, over under 36.5, the lowest over under we've seen on the year. And wouldn't you know it, the under hits 10-17 final. Tennessee wins at home, covers the spread. Denver now drops to an abysmal 3-6. Tennessee now 6-3. Russell Wilson is cooked. 50% completion passing, 286 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ran the ball 7 times for a whopping 8 yards because he was sacked 6 times. And so there was no running game happening for Denver at all. Melvin Gordon, 7 for 24. Latavius, 9 for 24. Chase Edmonds, even 2 carries for 9 yards. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy went down with a scary injury. Looks like he's going to be out for an extended time. Cortland Sutton, 6 catches, 66 yards. But really, again, nothing happening for the worst scoring offense in the entire NFL. It just puts up 10 points. Tannehill, nice day, 255 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, ran the ball twice for 12 yards. The Broncos defense did a good job holding Derrick Henry in check, 19 carries, 53 yards, 2 for 14. But exactly when Derrick Henry gets, held in check, Ryan Tannehill usually tends to do just enough. The play action game works really, really well when everybody thinks you're handing the ball off to Derrick Henry 55 times. And Nick Westbrook-Akine with the game of his life, 5 catches, 119 yards, 2 scores. So watch out, Robert Woods and Treylon Burks. There might be a new wide receiver 1 in Tennessee. Probably not. Probably just the best game he's ever going to have, and then everything else is going to be downfall. But nonetheless, Tennessee is that team, man. They're not sexy. Everybody knows who's going to get the ball 55% of the time, yet they still find ways to get the job done. They are now 6-3 after taking care of Denver. And if you're a Denver Broncos fan, this is probably not the way you expected the season to go. So I don't know what the future holds for Denver with no draft picks and a $250 million cooked quarterback.
Shovit, was this accidental pick that you had? Did you accidentally pick the Tennessee Titans to win this game?
I did. This was, this is the one where I fat fingered. I had the Broncos winning, and luckily it ended up working out in favor. Yeah.
I wish you fat fingered something on your fantasy lineup instead. That would have been nice.
Man, as long as it's not Justin Fields, I think I'll be all right.
All right. Next game up, we have the Jaguars visiting the Chiefs. I can't believe I get to talk about the Chiefs once again. It just seems like I play for them at this point. This is wonderful. Chiefs were favored by 9.5. The under hits 50.5. That's just, I kind of figured the Chiefs were going to throw up 50.5 by themselves. But the final score ended up being 17-27. The Jags are now 3-7, and the Chiefs are now 7-2. So what happened this game? Why is it only 17-27? Well, first of all, there were 2 fumbles and a pick for the Chiefs, and there were no turnovers, I believe, for the Jaguars. And that's why, that's how you win games. That's how, if you want to be a shitty team and go against a good team, you cannot make the minute mistakes like penalties and fumbles and stuff like that. So, however, Jacksonville they had a lot of penalties compared to the Chiefs. 5 penalties versus 0. Third down efficiency 28. That's garbanzo beans versus 70%. You heard that right. 70% efficient on third downs. Mother of God. The Jacksonville Jaguars also sacked 5 times versus 0 for the Chiefs. A lot of zeros we're talking about, and that's how you win games. Rushing and passing yards were dominated by the Chiefs, and they just came out right. If you just saw those statistics, you could have guessed the Chiefs won this game. Trevor Lawrence put up a good fight, 29 for 40, 259 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He ran 4 times for 26, respectable bye week fill-in. ETN had probably his worst game of the season, ran 11 times for 45 yards, 3 passes caught for 28. Minuscule fantasy points, but just enough to do something. Christian Kirk probably had the best week. He was wide receiver 2 on the week in full PPR. 9 catches on 12 targets for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zay Jones just hanging in there, 8 catches on 10 targets for 68 yards. Evan Ingram hit the pie number, 3 catches for 14 yards. No injury excuse today. And Mahomes, on the other end, 26 on 35 for 331 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then I talked about the pick. He also ran 7 times for 39 yards, that little cherry on top. Pacheco seems to have taken full control. As you guys remember, my Venn diagram is coming in beautifully. He was the dominating rusher, 16 totes for 82 yards. Nothing crazy, but when you're on a Chiefs offense, When the defense is not worried about the run game, this is going to turn into something beautiful. CEH had 2 targets, no rushes. McKinnon ran 1 time. He got 2 yards on that run, but he was targeted 8 times and caught 6 passes. Venn diagram is just amazing at this point.
And we got people still starting CEH with Pacheco on their bench.
Yeah, just don't do that. CEH is done. He's droppable. He's probably the #1 most droppable player in the NFL right now, depending on how high people were on him week 1. Juju left the game with a concussion. Hardman did not play. What does that mean? That means you should have started or thought about starting Kadarius Toney. I guess you couldn't have started Toney when you didn't know Juju was going to get a concussion. But now you know. If somehow Juju doesn't play, he's out for a week. Hardman, you don't know. It's an abdominal strain. Those are kind of a big deal for fast people. So he may not be back. We'll see.
And MVS, didn't MVS go out with an injury too? Same game?
Did he? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize.
Thought he might have.
Okay, well, Toney caught 4 catches on 5 targets for 57 yards, and he had that wide open touchdown on the right side. Kelsey had an average Kelsey day. I think he had 17 fantasy points, which is probably like the 4th most fantasy points he's had this year. 6 catches on 7 targets for 81 yards and a touchdown. And then MVS, 3 catches on 4 targets for 60 yards and a touchdown.
All right, that takes us to the next game. Browns at Dolphins. Miami was favored by 3.5 points, and the over-under in this game was 48.5. The final score, 17-39. Forget everything I said about the Hard Rock Stadium being muggy or causing it to be low scoring game. This definitely was not a low scoring game. The Dolphins came in, and with the firepower that they have with Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert, and even Jeff Wilson, Waddle, all these guys, had solid games this week in order for them to solidify that win. Bradley Chubb, who they recently just got in, he gets a sack, and the Dolphins defense did a good job stopping the run on Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb came in with leading the league in rushing yards and only allowing him to have 63 yards on 11 carries. I think that's a win. And he did get a touchdown. They did a good job stopping Nick Chubb from doing more damage than he did. Surprisingly, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Sukar, you started him. That I didn't see that coming. I wasn't surprised. I was, because I thought that would be something that we would see when Deshaun Watson comes in to play. I didn't think Jacoby Brissett could utilize Donovan Peoples-Jones like he did. 99 yards on five catches. I think he had a solid day, good flex option. But yeah, Jeff Wilson, I wanted to bring him up because if this is his second game and he has 119 yards on 17 carries, he's taking that backfield by a storm. Raheem Mostert, 65 yards, 1 touchdown, only 8 carries. He's been the guy there, but Mostert owners, I mean, if it's not for that touchdown, you're not looking happy about, it's not going good for you as far as the fantasy goes. Waddle, he had 66 yards on 4 carries, didn't get to a touchdown, but there were just so many other guys. Hill gets a touchdown. Trent Sherfield comes out of nowhere, gets a touchdown as well. So, what are you going to do there? But yeah, I mean, Dolphins, they've got the weapons, and when they use it, and with Tua playing the way that he's playing, 135 passer rating, it's just no contest for the rest of the league, or for the Browns for this week.
Yeah, the good thing about them is how the Vikings, if we play to our opponent's strengths and weaknesses and everything, you just play just like your opponents and then just enough to win the game. They don't care. Their defense is terrible. Their secondary is terrible, but they're just going to put up points. They're going to put up points all the time, regardless of how the defense is playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why fantasy players are great starts against Miami, because Miami puts up points and their defense gives up a shit ton of points. I mean, if you ask me week 1 if I've ever going to start Donovan Peoples-Jones this season, I probably would have been like, fuck no, with the Browns run offense with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback. Never. But the matchup warranted starting people because, again, what do the Dolphins do? They put up points. What do their defense do? They give up points. So that's a good strategy, probably continuing to head into the latter part of the season. If the Dolphins are playing against teams with bad defenses, their receivers all of a sudden become viable starters. That takes us to New York, where the Giants were hosting the Texans. My matchup of the week was good old Saquon Barkley against this Texans defense. And what does that man do? Oh, he only carries the ball for 35 times and 152 yards and a touchdown. 1 catch for 8 yards, was RB3 on the week, 22.5 fantasy points. Giants win this 16-24 final. The under 40.5 barely hits with the hook. They cover the spread. They're now 7-2. Houston drops to 7-1. We talked about Danny Dimes. He continues to be a streamable option. 18.28 fantasy points on 197 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, ran the ball for 5 times, 5 carries for 24 yards. One big play was Darius Slayton, 3 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. On the other side, Davis Mills, modest 319 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The only real guy on their offense is Dameon Pierce, as it continues to be. 17 carries, 94 yards, did catch the ball twice for 28 as well. Did lose a fumble on the day, so his fantasy line maybe not what it possibly could have been. And interesting enough, the pass catchers on that side, Nico Collins led the team with 10 targets, 5 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks, modest 4 catches, 37 yards. This game kind of went exactly as I expected. Texans were going to struggle to put up points against the Giants defense, but they had some success running the ball, which is kind of what we expected the Giants defense to be susceptible to. And Saquon was going to have his day, and he did. I mean, giving him the ball 35 times, that's a fantasy owner's dream. So continue to give him the ball that many times as fantasy owners will rejoice. Giants, nice and pretty, sitting at 7-2.
In one of my biggest games of the week, I was not very happy. The Saints visited the Steelers. Pittsburgh was plus 1.5. The under was 40. And the final score was 10-20 Steelers. Who saw that one coming? Shobit saw that one coming because he was high on them on his confidence rating on his little game thingy he plays with his work people. New Orleans is now 3-7, and Pittsburgh is now 3-6. The difference in this game was, plain and simple, TJ Watt. Okay. And, but from an analytic standpoint, the difference in this game was just total yards, man. Like I talked about how many yards the Saints put up last episode. Did not happen in this game. Total yards, 379 for Pittsburgh, 186 for the Saints. That's like 2 drives for Josh Allen sometimes. And rushing, same thing, 217 yards for the Steelers. Who saw that one coming? Not even Shobit saw that one coming. Versus 29 for the Saints. You heard that right, 29. The Saints also threw 2 picks versus no picks for the Steelers. And the Saints were less effective with less efficiency on 3rd down. They also had 10 penalties versus only 3 penalties for the Steelers. Again, not hard to figure out why they lost this game. Andy Dalton is no longer start-worthy. He was start-worthy 1 week when I just happened to start him that week. I was very happy about that. But they need a change here. If they're going to want to put up points, Andy Dalton is not – the safe way is not the way to go when you're not putting up points. Safe only works when your team is somehow putting up points and your defense is doing well. Your defense is not doing well here, and you're not putting up any points. So they need to change here. Someone needs to tell them, someone needs to tweet to them, whatever it is, they need to change quarterbacks. Alvin Kamara is not doing jack shit either. 8 rushes for 26 yards, 3 catches on 4 targets for 19 receiving yards. Absolutely not happy. I'm sure there's a group for Kamara owners who are pulling their hair out. Somebody let me know the name of that group so I can join. Juwan Johnson, 5 catches on 7 targets for 44 yards, salvages away with a touchdown. And then Chris Olave, probably this is going to be his worst game of the year. 3 catches on 5 targets for 40 yards. But again, I am Mr. Air Yards, and that stuff should not go unnoticed. He had a pair of deep bombs that didn't pay off. So the looks are there. Still 100% confidence in starting Olave. Landry came out of nowhere. He dropped a couple of passes, very un-Landry-like, but he's old. He had 3 catches on 6 targets for 37 yards. And then my risque play of the week, Najee Harris. He's fighting for his job. He's got to feed his family. I'm sure he wants kids in the future. You can't do that if you suck. And he ran 20 times to get 99 yards. 1 more yards, it would have been 100. It would have looked kind of cool on the stat sheet. But now it's just double digits. He only had 1 target. Nothing came of it. Did not catch that ball. Warren, there's a lot of conversation about that. I think if the game script was a little different, they were losing this game, I think Warren would have got a lot more touches. But he ran 9 times for 37 yards, and he caught the ball 3 on 3 targets for 40 receiving yards, saving all those super ballsy players that benched Najee and started Warren, because that isn't that bad. I think that's still more points than Alvin Kamara this week. And then as far as the receivers go on the Steelers, and I don't want to start anybody, not yet. And then, Pickett's not throwing really touchdowns. He's just kind of game managing. And If I don't have to start any of these players, I won't. Deontay Johnson caught 4 balls for 63 yards. Freiermuth caught 4 balls for 36 yards. Pickens caught 3 balls for 32 yards, but ran the ball twice and gained 23 yards on those 2 totes and got in the end zone on one of them, saving those ballsy players. Side note, will be starting Pickens this week in one of my deeper leagues where I have a lot of bye weeks. So wish me luck.
That defense, man, you get one guy back, TJ Watt. I know other people are slowly funneling back in, but I'm telling you, the impact one guy has, the TJ Watts, like I can only count on one hand the players of that magnitude in the entire NFL, and TJ Watt is absolutely one of them. I mean, this defense goes from like borderline college football-esque and not being able to stop anybody to all of a sudden a Saints offense that has at least been formidable for weeks, putting up points, even though their defense gives up a lot. For them to double them in yards offensively and only hold them to 10 points, Olave and Kamara, who've been fantasy fiends, to be completely kind of negated. I mean, that's damn impressive for Pittsburgh, but I expect nothing less from Mike Tomlin. Again, the reason nothing surprises me for Pittsburgh when they do well, even when they suck, is because that's going to happen when you're so well coached.
Next up, we've got the Colts at Raiders. Raiders were favored by 6 points here, and they did not cover that spread. Over was
what did I tell you last week, Chauvin? If there's one team to never believe in, it's the Raiders.
It's the Raiders, right? 42.5 was the over. Its final score was 25-20, so that did get hit. But it's funny because Jeff Saturday, like a week ago, was saying that the Raiders are the worst team in the NFL, tweeting it. And then he comes out and puts his money where his mouth is and actually ends up beating them. So very impressive win by Jeff Saturday. Makes the call, makes 2 big calls. First call was to start Matt Ryan, who was very efficient, 21 for 28, 222 yards, 1 touchdown. So I think that was very good on his side. And then Will Fries is the starting right guard who allowed for Jonathan Taylor to have the great game that he did. He had a huge 66-yard touchdown, and fantasy-wise, I mean, this is exactly what you want. We're hoping for Jonathan Taylor all throughout this season, and you're finally getting that. I mean, there was injuries, but finishing with finally 27.3 fantasy points, I think that you've got to be excited if you've got Jonathan Taylor. Paris Campbell versus Pittman. That's something that I'm kind of struggling with. Paris Campbell had 7 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. Pittman had 7 catches on 53 yards, but I think the targets were there. So maying forward, if Matt Ryan is starting, I feel much more confident starting Michael Pittman on that team. Before Matt Ryan, I'm probably not starting Pittman, but now I'm a little bit more comfortable with doing that. And the Raiders, Devontae Adams had a great day, 9 catches, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. And Josh Jacobs had 71 yards on 21 carries and a touchdown. But all in all, I think the Colts played really well. They played to their strengths. Matt Ryan did enough, did not throw any interceptions. And that running game really just was a leading factor to allowing them to defeat the Raiders, who are looking really bad at 2-7 now. Indy goes 4-5, but Raiders, I don't know if you put the panic button, what you do here, you're probably not winning any, it's a tough shot to get to the playoffs at this point, I think. Certainly can be done, but it's going to be a tough matchup in AFC West land. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But Colts get the win here. Kudos to Jeff Saturday.
I think it's really funny how the Raiders are the exact opposite of the Vikings. Like, they're in every game. Like, it's not like they're getting blown out, but they're in every game, and then they just shit the bed in the fourth quarter. They just don't know what they're doing.
And the funny thing about Jeff Saturday is if you think about it, he was kind of in a win-win scenario, right? Everybody mocked him for being hired, no experience, no nothing, blah, 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 blah. So if they lose this game, would anybody have really been surprised? Probably not. Like, they're like, oh, what were you doing with this hire, blah, blah, blah. And then if you win this game, again, everyone's like, whoa, we didn't see that coming. Again, he shit talked about the Raiders. So it's like there's already a storyline added to the win. And again, starting Matt Ryan, it's almost like what the old regime, Frank Reich's kind of philosophy was. Ellinger's the worst quarterback. He's less superior than Matt Ryan. I don't think anybody really debates that. So starting him was like blatantly being like, we're basically going to tank and we're going to let this young guy prove what he can do, but he sucks. He's a late round draft pick. He really isn't going to do anything. So it was such an easy move for Saturday to be like, I'm going to put the better quarterback, the veteran, the one that actually has done something in the NFL in. So like, it sounds like a great move. But the last thing I want to say before we move on about this game is you mentioned the whole Michael Pittman situation. Paris Campbell, the last 3 weeks, last 3 games that Matt Ryan is the quarterback, 18.7 fantasy points, 23 fantasy points, and 20.6 fantasy points. So there's something about Paris Campbell that Matt Ryan really, really enjoyed.
Yeah,
so,
he was a stud. I don't know if you guys remember, like 2 years ago, before he got a serious leg injury, he was actually killing it. The same year I had like 4 stud running backs. I had picked up Paris Campbell, and I was keeping a close eye on him. So yeah, he's a stud. He's an absolute stud.
Yeah, absolutely. Green Bay was playing host to Dallas, who traveled there in the cold. Green Bay at home, 5-point underdogs. Over under was sitting at 43. And I don't think anybody saw this coming. Green Bay wins this game 31-28 final. Dallas drops to 6-3. Green Bay is 4-6. Just when Aaron Rodgers was written off, 224 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. The Green Bay Packers just quite frankly ran all over Dallas. Aaron Jones, 24 carries, 138 yards and a touchdown, caught 2 passes for 18 yards. Even AJ Dillon, 13 carries, 65 yards. Rookie have a day, Shisho. You called it here. Christian Watson game, doing his best Randy Moss impression, 4 catches, 107 yards, 3 of those go for touchdowns against this Cowboys defense that we already knew was Fugazi. If their pass rush isn't going to get there, you can throw all over Trayvon Diggs and gang. And that's kind of what they did. Dak Prescott ended up having a decent fantasy day, but he was kind of the reason the Cowboys lost. 265 in the air, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, ran the ball 4 times for 6 yards. Tony Pollard, what does he do when Zeke's out? He dominates. That's nothing new. 22 carries, 115 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches for 13 yards. He might be like the one guy that I'm most excited about whenever his backup or whenever Zeke doesn't play. I mean, it's almost like guaranteed Pollard gets points when Ezekiel Elliott does not play. And CeeDee Lamb, coming out party. Have a day, kid. It's about damn time. This is why we projected him to be a top 10 receiver. 11 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Dak finally getting his number 1 receiver involved. And Dalton Schultz, the one constant in Dak's life. Anytime Dak is quarterback, Dalton Schultz is going to have a good day. 6 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Cowboys defense absolutely could not stop this offense. This Cowboys defense, again, that was so haunting. That pass rush was so good. All this stuff. And what is the one way to negate a pass rush? Is to run the football effectively. And that is exactly what they did. And now the Cowboys, you know, the jury is out on this defense. And it's like a week where a lot of defenses are looking suspect, and a lot of it is because teams are finding out that you can run the football against them. So this league is shifting back, this pass happy league, realizing that teams are now defensively focusing on playing pass defense. All of a sudden running holes are galore. So this exactly what Packers did. That's exactly why the Dallas defense was so suspect. And now again, sitting at 6-3 in a division with Philly, with the Giants. Dallas, you know, they probably will make the playoffs because of the wild card, but not the place you want to be, and not losing to Green Bay as 5-point favorites.
Absolutely, sweetheart. This is why it's called the human chess match. That's why football is called a human chess match, because not one piece is more important than the other. Every aspect of your game has to be good if you want to beat the best. All right, so Cardinals visited the Rams. They have a super solid rivalry going on as of the last couple of years. Arizona were the underdogs here at 1.5. Over-under was sitting at 41 points. 27-17 was the final score. Cardinals pulled the win. Sean McVay, you know, I honestly thought this was going to go the other way around because of the quarterback situation. However, the Rams defense is just not who they used to be. The Rams defense, you know, I thought maybe the Rams defense is a little bit better than the Cardinals defense. We have 2 rando quarterbacks starting. You know, maybe the better defense prevails, but it did prevail. And the Rams defense is just not that good anymore. Arizona is now 4-6, salvaging away their season. The Rams are now 3-6, pretty much done after what happened this game. And the biggest news, Cooper Kupp got injured, sprained his ankle. It's a high ankle sprain. I think there's some syndesmosis involvement. I don't know if you guys remember me talking about that a couple of months ago, I guess, at this point. But he's going to need surgery for that. And I don't know if he's going to be back for the fantasy football season. Most likely not. So you have to replace him. How do you replace him? You throw out dudes like Allen Robinson. Higbee's going to get more targets moving forward. Akers, Kyron Williams probably going to get more passing down work, and Skoranek might be relevant now. So these guys that I just mentioned didn't do shit this game. Akers and Henderson both had 6 carries each, so we still don't have a separation of power there. Both were around 22 yards. I think Akers had 22 yards on those touches, and Henderson had 21. But he is the goal line guy, so he got the goal line touchdown here. And Kyron Williams had 3 catches for 30 yards, so he's going to be the pass down back moving forward. He only had 1 carry, but that was for 9 yards. So what do we make of this backfield this late in the season? Man, I would just stay the hell away from this, because you don't want one of these guys to not hit, and then you have a big fat 0 sitting on your playoff fighting team. So Higbee, 8 catches on 8 targets for 73 yards. Allen Robinson, 6 targets, 4 catches for 44 yards. Van Jefferson, 3 targets, 3 catches for 27 yards, but he got the touchdown. And Skoranek had a very inefficient 2 catches for on 7 targets for 14 yards. On the other end, we had Colt McCoy at helm for the Cardinals. He had an okay game, but I'm not going to go into that because I'm pretty sure Kyler's going to be back. There's no reason to worry about Colt McCoy's stats. Connor, he's back, baby. This is what Connor did all year last year. This is what he does. He just scores touchdowns, man. He scores touchdowns and gets passing down work. And what more do you want when you're getting over 20 touches? He had 21 carries, only for 69 yards. But did you expect Connor to have 150 yards? If you did, you're a fool. This is what Connor does. And then he rolls into the end zone twice. But he was super efficient in the passing down work, 3 catches on 3 targets for 17 yards. Hopkins with 14 targets ends up around 98 yards, catching 10 of those targets. And then Zach Ertz out for season now with that knee injury. Probably going to be, finding a way to fill those holes. Max Williams is on the practice squad, so he's going to be brought up. And then the rookie, what's his name?
Trey McBride.
Trey McBride is going to be a huge waiver target. He's probably not going to be in the mainstream media's eyes immediately, but tonight the waivers go down, and I think you should probably just kind of throw it in there, especially if you're an Ertz owner and you want similar play by somebody else. You have to go out and get him. And then the last person I'm going to talk about is Rondale Moore, looking more and more relevant, especially towards the end of the more important part of the fantasy season. He had 13 targets. He caught 9 of those, and he had 94 yards. So it was a bad game overall, nothing exciting. But the 2 turnovers from the Rams were the difference here. And the inefficiency on third downs with lack of Cooper Kupp later in the game got them the big fat L.
Yeah, no more Benjamin. We talked about that as well. If somebody's still not, if you look at James Conner's history this year, it's not that sexy. So for some casual, you may be able to scoop up James Conner in this final stretch, man. And all that guy does is score touchdowns, and he has no backup. So he's probably a guy I want it towards the tail end.
Yeah, if somebody dropped him, then absolutely go out and get him.
No, not even drop. I'm saying he could be a good trade target because again, he's had 1 good week, right? But people aren't like, oh, they benched or they cut their backup. Oh, this is what he does last year. So, it's one of those things where I think a team that has James Conner probably is not in the thick of it, or they're maybe in the latter half because Conner hasn't been that great all year. He could be a guy you could go out and trade for.
All right, that takes us to Sunday Night Football. Chargers at 49ers. The spread here was favored the Chargers. 49ers by 7 points. The under is 45.5. 16-22 was the final in this game. So this was a tale of 2 halves. The Chargers came in on the first drive, hit the DeAndre Carter, gets a touchdown, and it's 16-10 at halftime, and things are going well for the Chargers, but the 49ers defense shut out the Chargers in the second half and allowed only 52 total yards. Talanoa Hufanga, which is aka Polamalu, gets an interception at the end of the game to help and any hopes for the Chargers. Herbert owners are probably trying to figure out what to do with Justin Herbert right now, who had 196 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Eckler, not the best of games, 6 carries, 24 rushing yards, but he did have 7 catches and 39 yards. So all in all, PPR, half-point PPR, he probably gets you 10 plus points, but you're probably expecting more from a team that doesn't have anyone, right? No, DeAndre Carter and Joshua Palmer are your only two receivers. Moving forward, 49ers, it's I don't think anyone had a great fantasy game. CMC does get 38 yards on one touchdown. If it's not for that touchdown late, he's not going to, have a great game either. And Elijah Mitchell, had 89 yards, which actually it's a good sign for Elijah Mitchell owners. And it's just interesting because you have so many weapons in the 49ers land that not enough like explosive offense like you see in like the Dolphins. So having anyone outside of probably Deebo Samuel and CMC has got to be concerning. Even with Ayuk, he gets 84 yards, but if he doesn't get a touchdown, it really doesn't mean anything for you. So not the best of fantasy production. But I think that, if you look at the game script, it was all about the 49ers defense. They showed up, and they're the reason why the 49ers win this game.
You know who's happy that Elijah Mitchell has doing that well?
Who is it?
Everybody that's not a CMC owner, because that's wonderful for the playoffs. All those CMC guys that are like, oh yeah, let's go. Well, guess what, buddy? 18 of those carries are going not to CMC. So if there's anything to learn from this, they're not sold on just wearing down CMC. He's a big part of their offense, and I think when available, when they're playing against teams like the Chargers who can't do shit, they're going to use Elijah Mitchell. And I think San Francisco is going to be the better team in almost every matchup they play, which means they're going to be running the ball a lot. And I don't see Elijah Mitchell going away anytime soon.
Yeah, it's weird that you trade a lot of capital for CMC just for him to come split carries. But yeah, I mean, again, it could just be a situation, like you said, where they want to sustain his durability. Sure. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, if I have to have a pass catcher on this offense, I personally would take Brandon Ayuk over Deebo Samuel, because the volume is not going to Deebo. Deebo doesn't even get balls thrown to him if he's not running the ball. His catches have been like so scarce, and most of the targets actually go to Ayuk. He's a better route runner. He does struggle with drops a little bit, but he gets open in passing situations, or he's looked at by Jimmy G way more often than Deebo. Deebo becomes like if he's running an in and you want to get it to him and let him run after, if he's running a screen, but a lot of the regular wide receiver routes all go into Ayuk.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So as a Deebo Samuel owner, this is the worst case scenario. Now that they're trying to bring in Elijah Mitchell into the fold, there's another mouth to feed in an offense that doesn't really pass the football all that much. And Deebo Samuel's like this weird tweener that now they have, Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey who can run the ball, which means Deebo has to run less, and they have a better route runner in Ayuk who, they can throw to more. So I don't know, man. Deebo Samuel has been incredibly disappointing. And now with Elijah Mitchell's resurgence, that almost to me hurts Deebo Samuel as much as it hurts like a CMC.
And then one thing of note, I know this is more about the preview game, but I think Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are practice. So.
Yeah, I would be more encouraged about Mike Williams, because Keenan Allen could just as easily re-aggravate the hamstring in practice. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that is huge. In that offense, the number one receiver should be started because the volume will be there. Now, whether the production's there, that's a different story. But I wasn't upset with my Joshua Palmer start just because, again, the targets were there. And again, if we go back and look at that fourth down, man, where the ball I think was overthrown or the interception happened, Palmer is his last read, right? He's looking all over here. Nobody's open. He's getting pressured. He sees him at the corner of his eye and he throws it. It's a bad throw and it gets picked. But the dude is like sitting on an island. So a couple of things go a little bit differently. I think that situation's a little bit different. But as a receiver on the Chargers side, if you're the number one receiver, and I still don't think Keenan Allen plays this week, you're probably still safely starting whoever their number one receiver is. Let's end the rundown. Monday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles trying to stay perfect on the season, and the Commanders came into town. Divisional game, 11 points. Rewind to the preview episode, 11 points, divisional game, primetime game, way too many points. Just showed upset alert. You said it here. 32-21, the Commanders destroy the Eagles on the road. Plus 11 underdogs win the game outright. Plus 425 if you took their money line. Congratulations. Over 44, absolutely demolished. Washington somehow now in this division. They're last place, but they're 5-5. Philadelphia drops to 8-1. Taylor Heineke, man, gets to add green, black, and white Jordans to his closet. And you know what else he gets? He is officially nominated for an Oscar this year for the worst unnecessary roughness calls I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, I could not believe the Eagles got penalized for that final play. I absolutely could not believe that. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, but it didn't matter. He got the job done. He played a horrible game, but because he took the penalty, he's the hero. He gets to wear the chains. He gets to wear the sunglasses. They interview him. He gets the Jordans, but not a great day for him.
He didn't look at the stat sheet. Is everybody watching the same game I'm watching?
He was fucking awful. He was awful. 211 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception, ran the ball 5 times for 10 yards. Brian Robinson, career game, 26 rushes, 86 yards and a touchdown. I dropped him. So if you didn't drop him, congratulations. But I don't know that this is going to be something that's sustainable. They just found a hole in the Philadelphia defense, which was they cannot stop the run. The guy that I talked about that's still the most viable in this offense, and he had another solid day. Antonio Gibson, 14 carries, 44 yards, found the end zone, 3 catches, 14 yards. And TMC, man, TMC is the constant on the receiving core with Heineke at the quarterback helm. 8 catches, 128 yards. On the Eagles side, Jalen Hurts has a pretty human game, 175 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, threw an interception. Did also get in the end zone, rushing 6 for 28. The Eagles just refused to run the football until late in the game. 20 carries as a whole, 94 total yards. Miles Sanders has had 12 carries for 54 yards. A.J. Brown got hurt early on that route. I don't think he ever really looked the same. 1 catch, 7 yards. Devontae Smith had 6 catches, 39 yards and a touchdown. And Dallas Goedert, 3 catches, 23 yards and a touchdown. Did also get hurt. Another tight end this week goes down. He's going to miss multiple weeks. So Eagles all of a sudden in shambles a little bit on the injury side. And again, the last thing I mentioned, the officiating was major sus. The no face mask on Hurts on Goddard was as blatant as it gets. That's the fumble that happens. That's the reason Washington gets that football. And again, I'll go back to it. That roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness on Heineke, bro, give that man an Oscar because that was some supreme acting. But it doesn't matter. As a Vikings fan, I'm absolutely ecstatic that the Eagles lose. They're 8-1. They're still number 1 in the NFC, but the Vikings are on their ass.
Why do you think it was acting? I mean, he clearly got tackled and knocked down.
No,
you think he faked going down?
I don't think he faked anything. I just think he literally got like nudged, and they called a 15-yard penalty. That was so awful. Like he ran this way, right? He ran this way, which makes him a runner. He kneeled the football, or he kneeled or tried to go down, and both guys came at him. But there's not any the amount of force that was hit on him was next to nothing. It was next to nothing. For them to call a 15-yard penalty.
I think it's not about the force of the hit. I think it's the fact that he kneeled the ball and he got touched. I think it's it's a stupid call. Don't get me wrong. It's
fucking stupid. He gave himself up. I get it.
Yeah, it's like when a quarterback, downs it and then he gets hit by a defender and get called.
That's totally, I totally get it, right? If you're hiking the ball and you kneel, the play's dead. You're scrambling Taylor Heineke and then he just magically decides at one point that he's going to take a knee. Yeah. That's impossible for a defense to stop at that point. That means a quarterback at any point run around and can just drop dead to the ground. And if a guy dives at him, 15 yards, unnecessary roughness. What are we doing here? That is some bullshit, some absolute horrific call. Chauvet's happy because it means his fantasy team won, but that's the difference there. What are you going to do?
I mean, there was more. I think there was more than just that as the difference, but
yeah, the face mask, obviously, -2 points for my tight end on a face mask. That's another one. There's plenty.
The Eagles shot themselves in the foot. Let's be honest. They had that deep ball by Devontae Smith. You're in scoring position all of a sudden. You can run the ball there, which they didn't do very much, right? Because they couldn't. They fumbled it. And then, I'm 100% on that Dallas Goedert face mask. That was a face mask that really frustrated me too. But at the end of the day, you can't turn the ball over after making good drives. And it just ended up becoming the reason why they even kept the Commanders in the game. They were allowed to run the ball. So Commanders couldn't run the ball, and it was just TMC the whole time. This would have been a whole different story.
Yep. But Eagles take the L. Again, that division gets a little bit tighter with the Giants at 7-2, Dallas at 6-3 now, Washington at 5-5. And that is it, guys. That is the rundown. Let's hand out some awards. I'll start us off. My award, pretty easy, is the He Is Him award.
Oh, you went with that him. That's Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, there is nobody else. There is nobody else. Number 9, count them, 9 50-50 balls per next gen stats that this man came down with this game. 9 balls that were literally, you could catch it or you could drop it. And this man came down with 9 of them. So that 4th and 18, the greatest catch in regular season history, might be the greatest catch I've ever seen personally. I'm trying to think of a better catch. Just the magnitude.
Had 2 hands on him. He had 1 hand on him. Out of position, had to go peak mode. 4th down, 18 yards. Like nothing was going his way. Nothing.
I mean, just incredible catch. The dude was there for Kirk the entire game when he needed him for the team. Again, just made play after play after play. 10 catches, 193 yards, and a touchdown. That dude is special, and he deserves to get paid. He is him. Vikings, pay this man.
All right. My award is called damage control.
I don't know. David Montgomery.
This award goes out to Amin Patel for sending us a text message earlier today saying, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to set my lineup at 3:30. Get the fuck out of here, buddy. Like, thank you for your service, but that's not good enough." So I call that damage control. He, at least he said something. Probably salvaged his more salvaging going on this thing, but absolutely not. You got to be better than that. You got to set your lineups.
All right, so mine is going to be new kid on the block, Christian Watson. So Christian Watson, the rookie, comes out here and gets 3 touchdowns on 4 receptions, 107 yards. Just new kid on the block, just doing new kid on the block things, and could solidify that wide receiver 1 role if he keeps playing like this. So,
yeah, somebody has to, right? We thought it was Dobbs. We thought it was Lazard. Thought it was Cobb. Nobody thought it was Cobb, but 8 targets for Watson, which is twice as much as Allen Lazard. So that is definitely encouraging to see. My game ball goes to the entire Minnesota Vikings football team. That was one of the best performances by a team I've ever seen on the road against a Buffalo juggernaut team, against Josh Allen. Pretty much everything was going against you. The refs were going against you, and despite all odds, you come away victorious. The resiliency for the entire team, the defense holding the Buffalo Bills to 6 points in the second half. Kirk Cousins, despite the interceptions, just hanging in there and throwing absolute dots. Justin Jefferson making all the plays where necessary. Patrick Peterson, 2 interceptions. I mean, Eric Kendricks somehow getting that fumble recovery in the end zone. I mean, again, as complete an effort as I've seen from this football team, I don't think this team wins this game last year, the year before that, or the year before that. There's something different about this football team. And again, the biggest difference between this year and last year is all these close games. They were all there last year, but we were losing just about every single one of them. And this year, somehow, some way, even though Greg the Leg misses an extra point, that almost became a blessing in disguise, because who knows how the game turns out if we kick that extra point and we only need a field goal and we play for the tie versus scoring a touchdown at the end. So all in all, the Minnesota Vikings get my game ball, because that was one of the best performances I've seen from a football team and the game of the year. So kudos, Homer.
Damn, you're going to be broke after buying 53 footballs.
Yeah.
My game ball is going to go to Chris Godwin. Thank you for getting in the end zone. And I'm taking half of that game ball because, as Sweetcar knows, I was with him for like 48 hours before the game, and I was debating starting Joshua Palmer, starting Chris Godwin, or starting Metcalf, right? Back and forth, this guy, that guy, back and forth. If I would have started either of the other 2 people, I would have lost my matchup. I won by 6 points, and that's solely because of you, Chris Godwin, getting into the end zone. So a lot of luck there, a lot of call it what you want, gut instinct, but I am giving you the game ball for getting me a dub.
Solid. Gotta love when you make the right decision. It pays off. Nothing better.
My game ball is going to go to Tua Tagovailoa, and he had an amazing day last week. 78% completion rate, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 135 passer rating. He is just, playing like his teammate says, Tyreek Hill says, the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, and with 78.1% completion rate, that's actually, that's pretty good. It's definitely up there. So he's playing well, and he gets the game ball for me this week.
78
for this game, right? Not for the season.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, shit.
That would be breaking. That'd be breaking records.
Yeah.
No, Tua killing it, man. Tua is killing it. 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. My fantasy quarterback should show. You could probably use Tua for your latter half of your season, man. Justin Herbert just ain't going to cut it. So if you're looking for a fantasy quarterback and a last minute running back addition, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor.
I have nothing to give you.
I'm surprised nobody's
What do you want? The thing is, nobody knows.
I have commodities on my team. I don't know. No one's offering me shit. You won't know that I'm not going to take it until I get trades offered, except when Nithershan offers me Dak Prescott for Deebo Samuel, which I would never start Dak Prescott because I have Tua. So, those types of trades, or Riaz trades where it's like, 6 of his bench players for Jonathan Taylor, like that's obviously not going to fly. But, I would definitely entertain listening to trades because my team needs a change of scenery. I'm 0-10 clearly. So something is not working with the roster that's on my team right now. So
if it's not this week, it's going to be rough. It's got to be this week.
Yeah, been saying that, man. Been saying that. I did the numbers for you guys. I literally dove into the numbers to see how crazy it is that I haven't won a game. So it is wild. It is wild. But that is it for the awards. Let's end the episode real quick, guys. Preview Thursday Night Football. Football kicks off again in 2 days. The Packers, coming off this victory against the Dallas Cowboys, are hosting the Tennessee Titans. Packers at home, favored by 3 points, over under 42. Tennessee comes into this game 6-3. They're currently the number 3 seed in the AFC. Green Bay at 4-6, the 9th seed in the NFC. It's interesting here, dynamic with the differences in these two teams. The Tennessee defense is second in the league in rushing yards allowed at only 85.1 yards per game. Green Bay had a field day rushing the ball the last couple of weeks with Aaron Jones, so that's going to be an interesting matchup. But Tennessee's defense is second to last in passing yards allowed at 272.6 yards. So Aaron Rodgers gets a really nice bounce back matchup after coming off that really nice victory last week. Green Bay's defense, on the other side, completely different. Number 3 in the league in passing yards allowed at only 179.7 yards per game, but they're 7th worst in the league in rushing yards allowed at 140.6. So what does all this spell? It spells the 2 best players on both teams are going to be the focal point. Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw the football against Tennessee defense that cannot stop anybody, but they do damage control against the run. And Derrick Henry is going to have to run all over this Green Bay defense that can't stop the run, but they're really good against the pass. So it's almost like both teams' defenses play to how the offense wants to play. That's going to make for an interesting matchup. And then obviously, the one guy you have to watch out for just because of his performance last week, Christian Watson. You kind of have to see what that's about. If I have nobody, if I'm looking for a flex with upside, he becomes intriguing all of a sudden. Again, 8 targets last week, which was twice as much as Lazard, as the next highest at 4 catches, 107 and 3 touchdowns. Again, let's see what the kid has. And so, if I'm me and I'm 0-10, I'm throwing Christian Watson in my lineup. If you're looking for a flex that can put your team over the top, not the worst, play of the week, considering that the Tennessee pass defense is abysmal. You guys got anything on this game?
Yeah, I think everybody should grab Christian Watson. It's not because he's like super special, but I think he's very CD Lamb like, and the skill set is there. He can definitely do it. And when it's an Aaron Rodgers led offense, I know we're 10 weeks in, but he's gonna throw bombs. Like the bombs are coming.
Yeah, at 4-6, if they're going to, go out or go down, they're going to go down swinging. And so I'm expecting a lot of throwing for Aaron Rodgers on Thursday against his Tennessee secondary. That's it, guys. That is the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube. Listen to us on any of your podcast platforms. Give our social medias a follow: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Again, I'm Sweetcard. That's your show. That's Shove It. We're the only playbook. Have a fantastic week, and we look forward to talking to you guys again on Friday.